Hello, my name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. We are recording tonight on Sunday, January 28th, 2024. This is story number 45 on my YouTube channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. Tonight we will look back at some of the Super Bowls. The football Super Bowl game began in 1967, and the first Super Bowl was played in Los Angeles on January 15th, 1967. But at that time, they really called it the AFL-NFL Championship game, those first 2 years, in 1967 and 68. The leagues were still separate then. The National Football League was separate from the American Football League. In that first game, what we now call Super Bowls, the Green Bay Packers of the National Football League beat the Kansas City Chiefs of the American Football League 35-10. Green Bay had a great quarterback at that time named Bart Starr, wore number 15 on his uniform. And again, that game was January 15, 1967. In Los Angeles. The second Super Bowl the next year was on January 14th, 1968. And again, the Packers won. This time they beat the Oakland Raiders of the AFL. About the time of the third Super Bowl is when they came up with the term Super Bowl, around that time in January of 1969. That game was between the heavily favored Baltimore Colts of the NFL and the New York Jets of the AFL. The Jets had a young quarterback named Joe Namath, who went to the University of Alabama. His college was Alabama, and he was in that league for just a few years. And he boasted at a hotel down in Miami, Florida, the week before the Super Bowl, how he would beat the Colts. He and the Jets would beat the Colts, and sure enough, they did. They beat the Colts 16-7 on January 12, 1969. And then the next year, 1970, after the game was played in January, sometime later that year, the leagues merged into what we now call the NFL, National Football League. But most of the teams that were in the AFL became the AFC conference of the NFL, and most of the teams had been the old-time NFL were then in the National Football Conference. So the league is divided into those two conferences ever since, the NFC and the AFC. Each has their own championship game. As a matter of fact, today, just in the last hour, literally, I watched the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Baltimore Ravens today here in Baltimore by a score of 17-10. To win the 2024 AFC Championship. And right now, even as we speak, the second game is on television for the NFC Championship between the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. So 2 weeks from today, on Sunday, February 11th, 2024, this year's Super Bowl will be played between the Kansas City Chiefs and the winner of Detroit and San Francisco. In recent years, the Super Bowl now is played in February, but for most of the history of the Super Bowl, it was in January. But now they play one game more in the regular season, plus there's more playoffs, they have wild card playoffs and all that. I remember with great interest that Super Bowl number 5 in 1971, when the Baltimore Colts, 2 years after losing to the Jets, the Colts beat the Dallas Cowboys by a score of 16-13 in that Super Bowl in 1971, played on January 17, 1971. In the late 70s and early 80s, the Pittsburgh Steelers were one of the best teams in NFL. They won the Super Bowl 4 times in that period, and twice more in this century, the 21st century, for a total of 6 times. And the other team that has won 6 times are the New England Patriots. Since the year 2002, they have won 6 times. and they've been to the Super Bowl, I think, 9 times altogether, winning 6 times, all in this 21st century. So they're the two teams that have won the most, 6 times each. And of course, the Patriots had the great quarterback Tom Brady, who just retired a few years ago. He played most of his career with the Patriots, but the last 3 years then he played with Tampa Bay. Truly amazing how he made it to the Super Bowl as many as 10 times, winning 7 times. 6 times with the Patriots he won. Then his first year with Tampa he won. Despite being a new team with different chemistry and all, but somehow it worked out. They won that year. They beat Kansas City Chiefs. But the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls since 2020. And they seem like one of the best teams at this time. As I say, they beat the Ravens today, even though the Ravens had a better regular season record and actually beat the Chiefs in a regular season game here in Baltimore several months ago. In fact, it was on this day, January 28th, in 2001, that the Ravens won their first of 2 Super Bowls. That game, they beat the New York Giants handily, 34-7. And the second time the Ravens made it was 12 years later in 2013. On February 3rd, 2013, they beat San Francisco 49ers in a real close game. They beat them just by 3 points. A strange thing happened in that Super Bowl. The Ravens had a pretty good lead at halftime, but the lights went out at the Louisiana Superdome, or the New Orleans Superdome. At least many of the lights went out, and it was a long delay. As you know, halftime shows usually take anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes anyhow, but it was the better part of 1 hour and 15 minutes before the game was resumed, and the 49ers regrouped apparently and made it very close, but the Ravens did pull out a 3-point win that day. But the greatest of all Super Bowl games was played just about 7 years ago in 2017. On February 5th, 2017, the New England Patriots played the Atlanta Falcons, and the Patriots were favored to win. Yet Atlanta was up 28-3 at halftime, a tremendous lead. And somehow the Patriots under Tom Brady came back in the second half and tied the game at 28-all. And the first time ever the Super Bowl went to overtime. And the Patriots scored a touchdown to win 34-28. A tremendous comeback. Super Bowl number 51. That was the first time a Super Bowl game ever went to overtime. And a great comeback by the Patriots to win that game. Well, I have an idea. It's just an idea that I think would be better, really, if the Super Bowl was played on a Saturday night rather than Sunday. And that's because so many people like to have parties and have a good time and all, but most people have to get up early Monday morning to go to work, or younger people to go to school. And in my opinion, a Saturday night would be great to have the Super Bowl game, and then Sunday would effectively be a national rest day, we could call it. I think people could enjoy it even more and not have to worry. I mean, some people have to take off work then or call in sick or whatever. That's just what I believe. I think it'd be better to have it on a Saturday night. But in any event, the Super Bowl now, well over 50 years since 1967, an American tradition. Well, we'll see who plays this year on February 11th. We know Kansas City is in, and we'll see between Detroit or San Francisco who they play in that game 2 weeks from today. This is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. We'll see you next time. Another story on another subject. Thank you, Happy New Year, and good night.